steps, and welcome to another Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. Anyway, all right, by the end of this session, you are going to have 15 Kihon no Kihon, 15 elements from within the ninjas, the Bujinkan, Sanshin Kata that everybody tends to see as a beginner, basic kind of model, right? What we want to do is dive into these things and take a look at basic skills that themselves will get changed. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at them from a different perspective today, right? So before we jump into the Sanshin Kihon, what I want to do is I want to take a look at what I learned along the way as 3 levels of transmission, right? This is for every kata, every scroll, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's 3 levels of transmission, not just one, okay? So again, we'll get back to this Sanshin Kihon no Kihon in just a minute, right? So we're going to take a look at, again, 3 levels of transmission, right? 3 levels of transmission, right? If you're one of my distance students, right, you have a worksheet that down uses a little bit different wording, right? But it breaks it down into 3 levels: mechanics, dynamics, staging, intent, that kind of thing. And then in each one, there's 3 core areas of study, right? So that in and of itself broadens things out, but that just keeps pointing back to this core principle that we have. We did a whole other video on this, so go to the playlist, go to the YouTube channel, and look up the video that we did on the 3-in-1, 1-in-3 principle. It was actually 2 different lessons that we did. One was 3-in-1, one was 1-in-3. You'll find it. Anyway, so 3 levels of transmission, right? The first level, most people would call these things basics, intermediate, advanced, but it's not that, right? So the first one is mechanics, and these things are based on right? So mechanics, right? This is shoe, right? Not shoe like you wear in your foot, right? Shoe. It's also not hand, right? This shoe means to copy or preserve, right? That means the way your teacher is demonstrating it, do that thing, no variation, no screwing around with it or whatever, right? Here's the expert role model. You're going to be an expert, do it that way, okay? It makes a great bad habit breaker as well, right? If I can't do the kata, if I can't do the form, it's not the form. The form has lasted for how many hundreds of years, right? So it's not that. There's something going on with the way I'm doing things, right? So second level, right, is, I'll use the word dynamics again, right? But what this is variation, right? So variation, right? There's this word that's been bandied around for decades, henka, right? Variation. But people tend to use that as a cop-out or BS or as a way to kind of make up for crap taijutsu, okay? What we're talking about here is varying things, right? We might be, and we're going to look at dynamics, balance, timing, angling, those kind of things. And we're going to vary those to get a better understanding of how and where and whatnot, right? Things get adapted based on different variables in a fight, okay? So this, in that ancient model, is ha, right? And again, to dive in deeper on it, go find the Whiteboard Wednesday we did on the Shuhari model, right? So at the end, I'll put some links in, or if they're not there, they'll be in the description down below if you're on YouTube, okay? So ha, in this case, ha means to break, right? At somebody, okay? It's not like, ha, you can't do it right? It's not that, right? It means to break, right? So what we're doing is we're breaking the model, okay? So at the very beginning, you don't break anything, right? You do the thing, whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not, right? Some of the Japanese master teachers over the years, a couple of them now are soke, right? Somebody would say, like, why would we do this? Or what school does this come from? Or whatever, right? Like that part matters until you can do it, right? And that's exactly what they would say. They would go, doesn't matter. If you can't do it, none of that matters, right? So, but again, Westerners aren't Japanese students who will do things because the teacher suggests it, right? we have to be told. It has to be a command. It has to be an or else. It has to be and for some people, oh, if you don't tell them the big why, it. We start to look at different things, right? We start to vary things, distance, time, all that kind of stuff, right? And then the third level, normally I call it staging intent. What I'm going to call it is practical application. Practical application, right? So along here in this variation, this dynamics thing, right? The original model, right, has this classical ski, generally speaking, or a stomp kick or whatever, right? This old way of doing things. But if we look at that, right, things are on one line. Not only is it really difficult to do anything, right, because they're taking your center, right? But it's easy to find your angles, right? If we have this big model, it's easy to find things, right? It's it is what it is, right? But we start replacing those straight line punches with hook punches, uppercuts, back fist, right? Front snap kicks, side kicks, axe kicks, whatever, right? From different arts. And we suddenly realize, shit, like that initial angle in the basic model, that's got to change, right? It's not about doing whatever we want. It's about understanding the principles and concepts that are buried in there. So mechanics, right? Understand how to use your body against their body. Here's the thing, right? And it's their body's not even involved a whole lot, right? At this level, at the shoe level, right? This is all about you, okay? Which foot steps where, which hand goes where, what hand does a strike, what strike is it, that kind of thing, right? You can do this shadow boxing. The number of people that want to train down here, right? Well, I can't do any training because I don't have a training partner. Really? Bullshit. You got a ton of stuff to do, right? So it's all about you, okay? Then when we start breaking things up, see, now these are all dependent on our ability to fit in with somebody else's movement, position, distance, range, weapon they're using, their height, all that kind of stuff, right? So everything here is dependent on where it's based on him, okay? Him, her, it, whatever you want to use, right? Okay? So we're here, right? And then this practical application, now we're in different types of scenarios. In the black belt levels, this is where we deal with things, right? How small of an area, big of an area, what kind of furniture you have laying around, right? Where are you? Trip hazards, what kind of ground surface you on, what kind of clothing are you wearing, all that kind of stuff, right? So how are you going to adapt what we've learned to a given situation, right? So this is about both of us, okay? This is about back and forth give and take. This is dropping the idea of attacker defender, like we're on some kind of moral high ground, right? This here is just understanding that if I'm throwing something at him, I'm the attacker, he's the defender. That doesn't make me the bad guy and him the good guy, right? Which is what people tend to get all wrapped around, right? The attacker's the bad guy, the defender's the good guy. Bullshit. The person executing something is the attacker. They're delivering an attack in that moment. The other person has to deal with it or suffer the consequences, right? And if he's throwing something at me, then so what we have is this back and forth exchange. There's a certain timing to that. We can change that. We can adapt to it, right? We can modify things, all that. That kind of thing, right? So this is true for any kata. This is true for any scroll, and this is true for the Sanshin. Okay, there are 3 levels of transmission. Okay, anybody that's ever worked in Ishizuka Sensei's dojo for more than a class or two, right, knows this. Okay, because he'll introduce what we're doing, and he'll specifically say, right, we're doing first level transmission, right. We might do that for a week, and then the next week, okay, now take the same thing, second level transmission. And if we can get through that, toward the end of class, we'll do a third level transmission kind of idea, right? But you got to get your shit together, or I've been there a couple of times where we're doing this and we're supposed to transition to this. And as soon as we start working on this, he goes, no, never mind. We need to fall back to this because people haven't been practicing. Okay. So he, at least, right, isn't there to entertain anybody. Right. So that's a place to start. Right. So now we have that. Right. And of course, if you're on YouTube or you're looking at the recording of this thing in my future somewhere, right, you have the ability to rewind and take a snapshot, unless my guy James works up a worksheet for this like he often does. And then there'll be a link in the description where you can click over and download the worksheet. Okay? All right. So Sanshin Kata is what most people know it as. I learned it as both Sanshin Kata, Sanshin Waza. It's called different things at different times, right? Sanshin means 3 hearts. Okay? 3 hearts. Okay? This idea of Shin is in Mikyo. It's in a bunch of things, right? So what it points to is core essential pieces, right? Okay? Core essential pieces, right? It can also point to that, but what we're looking at is 3 core important pieces. Okay, so what I want to take a look at today is we'll lay them out. Right, I'll do a little bit of demonstration today. That's why the camera angle's at a different depth of field. But I'll also make sure there's a link down in the description to go to a series that I have. It's either a 6 or 7 video series for. Just something I put together a bunch of years ago, right? Take a look at those. Unless you're the kind of person that doesn't want any background, doesn't want the why, doesn't want any of that, technical details and whatnot. You just want to be entertained by some dancing monkey on a computer screen, right, or a phone or whatever. If that's the case, then don't go look, because you'll just be highly disappointed. All right. So anyway, we're going to take a look at these 5, and then we're going to break them down. Okay. So I'm actually going to write them in ascending order instead of descending order, right? And there's a specific order, right? Chino Kata, Sui no Kata. If you've been around for a while, you're probably saying the next one before we even get there, right? Sui no Kata, Ka, or Hi no Kata. They both mean fire, by the way. Okay? Ka no Kata, Fu no Kata, and Ku no Kata. Okay? Now, at the different transmission levels, these mean something different. The translation's the same, but they mean something different. Okay? In the mechanical stage, first level transmission, Chi, Sui, Ka, Fu, Ku, earth, water, fire, wind, void. That's how they translate, right? So earth example, water example, fire example, right? Not concrete form. Okay, it's an example of this thing in action, right? Okay, Chino Kata, Sui no Kata, Ka no Kata, Fu no Kata. So wind form, void form, that kind of idea, right? Okay. These are not about the elements in the first level transmission. Okay. In the old days, this was a way to count things. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, without saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But what's implied, okay, and not everybody got this lesson, not my fault, right? What's implied is I need to know this one to do this one, okay? Because there's a butt ton of this in here, okay? Even though the form looks different, okay? I need to know these 2 for that one to make more sense. Other lessons are going to be added to it, but I need to know these to do this. You get the idea, right? Okay. So in the middle level, right, second level transmission, right, we are one of those variations, one of those dynamics we are going to look at, okay? What's this earth kind of thing, right? This ground holding, right, natural kind of thing, right? Sui no Kata, this adaptive, defensive, whatever. There's a feel to that, right? Ka no Kata, there's this certain, right, direct application, that kind of thing, right? Okay, so I'm not going into these in depth. If you watched last week's Whiteboard Wednesday, we did the Sanshin Kihon as well, but we looked at it from a different perspective. We looked at it from the perspective of penetration, right? How do we get inside his defenses and deliver our technique, deliver our attack without him being able to resist, avoid, escape, all that stuff, right? So again, we're coming at this almost backing up a little bit, right? But what this lesson is going to do is kind of fit between first and second level transmission, okay? First and second level transmission, right? So Chino Kata, right? So we'll take a look at these what do you call them? Models, but we want to dive into them, right? So I want to look at those 3 hearts. Kihon means fundamental, right? So then what the hell is Kihon no Kihon? Is that a stutter? It's not a stutter, right? It's fundamentals of the fundamentals. If these are seen as fundamentals, right, core important pieces that you're supposed to have, then what are the fundamentals within those? Okay. Another lesson that we had Whiteboard Wednesday a bunch of episodes ago was one called it was something I call 0 point method, right? So what that was there, I gave you a worksheet, right? We'll assume there's 10 there, right? Okay. So what we had was, and don't count the lines because there's not 10. I don't have enough room, right? So there's, okay. So the 0 point thing is whatever kata you're working on, right, goes on that 0 point line. And then there's a butt ton of stuff you need to work on, right? These Kihon no Kihon to be able to do that model correctly. And then, see, most people think that once they get the model, man, they're ready for Joe Jackwagon on the street that's trying to beat, break, or kill them. And, okay? So from the 0 point method, right, once we have this, then all this stuff here, right, is getting everything ready for street readiness, right, or leading to street readiness. Well, we understand this stuff so well that we're not trapped by the form, right? But we have all the key pieces that we need and some stuff that we're going to need to know to not get beaten, broken, killed, sent to the ER, sent to the morgue, whatever, or watch our friends and family, watch that happen to them because we're lacking the wherewithal. We're going to give it a good try, but okay. So anyway, again, we'll try to remember to put a link down in the bottom. You can just go to the Whiteboard Wednesday playlist on YouTube, and all these things are in there. Okay, so what I want you to see is that each of these, right? It's kind of like a flow chart here, right? Each of these is something to work on. So it's kind of a box or a container. Remember, it's a model, right? And then off of each of these, there's 3 core pieces, right? Sanshin, 3 core pieces, okay? Right? You get the idea, right? Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these core pieces. So again, by the end of this, you'll have 15. And then what I'm going to do is kind of take a look at one set, right? One set, right? And then that's actually what we're going to be working on this Friday during our Friday virtual class here at the Academy that you can sign up for and be a part of, okay? All right, so the 3 core pieces, right, at this first, second level transmission, right, all these things have to do with kamae, footwork, and striking. Okay, kamae, footwork, and striking, right? So you understand how this is laid out, and you can do the math. What you end up with is 5 aspects of kamae, 5 aspects or types of footwork, and 5 aspects with striking, right? Either mechanically or strategically, right? Because remember, there's these 3 pieces that go into your training as well. Again, everybody wants to look at the techniques, but there's techniques, there's tactics, which make doing the techniques easier, and then there's strategy, right? What's the intended outcome, okay? So let me get something that's, I have one, okay? Hopefully you can see this green. I got some brand new markers for you guys, right? So I'll do them very, very quickly here, right? You can look up the other ones, but Chino Kata, right? Kamae, you're introduced to this Shoshin no Kamae, right? Beginner's heart, right? Shoshin. It's not the same as Kotoryu's Bobi no Kamae, right? This can be misunderstood because it looks the same. I don't give a shit what it looks like, right? What's going on, right? So we've got this bladed kind of thing, but what we're looking at are the 3 core pieces in self-defense, right? So what I'm doing is I'm removing as many targets as possible, right? I'm creating a safe distance, right? And managing that distance, and I'm covering anything that I can't remove, okay? Pretty simple, right? So Shoshin, right? We get that, right? So we're introduced to this first part, okay? Then what we're doing is we're focusing more on this naname, right? This angling, right? So from here, when the attack comes in, we're shifting off, right? There's a bunch of other things that we're doing. We're gonna focus on 3, right? But I'm moving and hiding this draw, right? Because this is part of the strike. If he can see it coming, he can defend against it. And the sooner he can see that you're doing something, the sooner he's going to do something about it, right? So if I can move in a way that you can't see me draw that, whether it's a sword or my fist or whatever, right? Then when it comes in, it's that last second kind of thing, right? So we're introduced to this idea of naname, right? Angling. Some people just call it 45 degrees, whatever, right? What it is flat to the attacker, but angled to the attack, right? It's part of Tai Sabaki, body management. Did a whole episode on that too, okay? And then striking, we're looking at this pendulum striking, right? A lot of people, and when I introduce this to people, I give them this boshiken, right? This fist this way. But there's this idea of the Sanshin Ken. Shitan Ken is one of the 9 hand fist of our 16 body weapons, right? So Shitan Ken, any 3 or 4 fingers together, right, reinforced, this kind of thing, right? But Sanshin Shitan Ken uses these power rings. Oh, yeah. All this shit that doesn't exist based on the beliefs of a lot of people, passing things out. Anyway, right? So it could be done this way, right? Because this is the chi, earth finger, right? But either way, right? You come up this way, but we just typically teach people at the very beginning how to do this boshiken, right? So if you did some mirror work, you did some camera work or whatever, you would know whether or not you were telling, you were sneaking, whether it was coming in. But the idea with this pendulum striking is it works with the body's natural arm swing, right? Kind of like a crane with a wrecking ball, right? So your body is just allowing, moving this thing. And then what you're going to do is catch that momentum and add to it instead of trying to generate this way, right? The other thing it does is it comes up from underneath their peripheral vision. So it's this last second thing, right? The chances of them seeing it at full speed, right? If you do this thing right, it's really, really slim, okay? So what we're looking at is this pendulum striking, okay? And you could put in Boshiken, you could put in Sanshin, Chiken, Shitanken, whatever, right? But we've got a posture where we're covering, right? How do I make it as difficult as possible for him to get at me before anything even starts, right? How do I do that, right? And then we're going to work at this angling. So as he comes in, we're going to shift off, right? Be at the right angle so that we come in with this other thing. There's no blocking or anything in the conventional sense. The uke nagash is keeping this hand out in front so that either they're paying attention to this or I'm keeping it in the way so it's harder for them to do the next kind of follow-up, right? Chino Kata, right? Remember what I said. This is important for this, okay? So Chino Kata, now we've got this uke nagash this way, and then we're shifting in and bringing this thing in. So we've got this oshito and all that. But if you watch the way my arms are moving, right? So we've got this covering this way, but as I move forward, my arm is doing this pendulum movement just like we had down here. It's coming up to control, and then what we're learning to do is strike from behind cover, right? The weapon is the shield. This is important in bow. It's important in sword. It's a core piece, right? It's a Kihon no Kihon, right? So we're doing Shoshin, but what we're doing now is we're maintaining Kamae as we do Uke Nagash and all that wonderful stuff, right? So, and we're maintaining Kamae, right? So as I catch this, as I move in, this arm doesn't retract because I'm worried about this, right? As I move in, I stay in Kamae. This part stays in Kamae so that I'm controlling his arm, right? Right? So maintaining Kamae on entry, right? Yuri means to enter, right? Footwork, okay? Footwork, I don't know if you can see this, if I can get far enough back here, but what's happening is I'm moving rear leg forward and then the front leg back because I'm maintaining space, right? So we're going to talk about footwork here in just a bit, right? So we have this space holding. Space holding footwork. Okay. And then the striking is a lateral strike, but a lateral strike that doesn't do this, because in the old days with this kabuto, right, this helmet, let me grab one of these things. Got guys that are great with arts and crafts and all that. Now I don't have the material in here that would have been packed into the helmet. So when it went on, right, then it would sit up here. But you only have this space in here. Can you imagine doing the shito the way a lot of people do it? Just keep banging off the helmet, right? You had to slide in, right, to these spaces and then turn the hand last second, okay? So it's not striking from out here. It's moving in from behind this shield and then popping them at the last second, right, in against this uko, right? So it's learning how to do a lateral strike, right? And of course, we're doing it with an omote shito, okay? Excuse me. Pollen's up terribly around here, and my asthma is just killing me. Anyway, so Kano Kata, right? Kano Kata. So again, we have this ground holding kind of footwork, right? Chino Kata typically stepping all the way forward. Now, I know a lot of people don't change up the footwork, okay? I'm going to fix this, right? Because the more limitations that are in here, the more of these key pieces that we're missing, the less we're going to be able to adapt, okay? So, again, so in this case, we're going rear leg to front leg because I'm moving in, right? I'm moving in to generate this power in. And the leg is the front leg is going back, but the torso is still shifting forward to be able to deliver this strike. But my body never left this spot. Okay? So this is important because we're going to do it again in Kano Kata, right? In Kano Kata, what we're looking at with a kamae, everything's the same leading up to a certain point, right? And how we're maintaining kamae, right? So in Kano Kata, I'm going to do it against a low punch this time, right? But it comes in, we're going to catch this thing, front leg. Let me see if I can shift a little bit more here, right? Here, now the front leg comes back, right? And we're going to rotate to cover and then enter in from there, right? So, kamae, what we're looking at is taking a position, right? Now the footwork is combining and whatnot, right? So we're going to take a position. We've neutralized what they're doing, and I'm in a position of safety where Suino Kata, I do my uke nagash, and I'm moving in because I'm breaking their balance. I'm maintaining control of their body as I move in and breaking their balance the whole way, so this becomes easier, right? In Kano Kata, I just knock that out of the way, but I don't have control of their body. So now what do I do? Well, I'm in a position of safety. I maintain that while I'm watching to make sure that I'm clear, but I make sure that I rotate my body. I'll do it facing you. Boom, boom, right? So I'm set. So I've got this cover going on before I bother delivering this, right? So I'm paying attention while I'm making this transition to make sure that it's safe to move in to deliver. I'm not doing this shit mindlessly. Okay? So in Kano Kata, again, I'm maintaining kamae, but really what I'm doing is I'm maintaining a safe distance with cover. Just in case he decides he's going to charge in, right? I can move here, and then if he comes in, instead of delivering it, I can back out, whatever, right? Footwork, again, is still ground holding, but I've got rotational movement. My legs are moving in a linear fashion. Again, let me move back here, right? So my legs are always moving linearly, right? But I'm rotating on my spine. Okay? So, and also the weight transitions to the new leg this way, right? This leg is easy to move without leaning and pitching. Okay? So the footwork now is more, because again, this stuff comes from the Gyoko Ryu, right? It's more of a single point Hicho kind of idea, right? Even though people would have gotten this before they got Hicho, right? And if you look at Hicho no Kata is Kano Kata with a kick added. Okay? So, single leg, and better weight transition, right? Let's see. Weight transition isn't so big, right? In the other ones, the weight transitions across the legs, big kind of thing, right? Even in Chino Kata, forward, back, right? It's a bigger thing. In this case, I'm shifting back, rotating on my spine, and my weight is on my back leg. You should be able to shift, right? Do this movement, boom, boom, and be in a hicho, ready to move, okay? And then striking in this one, again, it's a lateral strike, right? But where Chino Kata was keeping me off balance and fighting for stability and whatnot, and I was going to strike him while he was falling, in this case, right, I'm striking from behind safety, from behind cover. Okay, my shield, my strike, same thing, right? Funo Kata, okay? So Funo Kata is kind of tricky, right? Because Funo Kata is Chino Kata without all the extra stepping, okay? So again, I'm maintaining kamae, but what I'm doing is when this thing comes in, right, and I shift, my legs are going to do this transition thing, right? Very much like they did in Chino Kata, right? But I'm going to change sides this way. Now, when I first teach people, I have parry off and then come around with this kind of lateral striking. But what we need to do is very quickly change sides, because this strike is going to knock their arm out of position, knock them off balance as I strike them. So I'm going to uke nagashi and attack at the exact same time. Okay? So Funo Kata here, right, is the kamae is trusting. Right? My movement, my positioning, that kind of stuff, right? The footwork, I had this one teacher one time, he identified himself as Texas-born, Georgian-raised, 145 pounds of romping, stomping, hillbilly hell. What that meant was he had a whole bunch of really cool southern U.S. Slangish kind of things, right? And one of these things was called a squirrel jump, right? Where we're able to change sides and whatnot, where we're just very, very quickly doing this, where our legs move linearly, the spine turns around, or the torso turns around the spine, and the limbs do their thing, retraction, extension kind of thing, right? So the footwork, I'm just going to write that, right? Hopefully you'll remember, right? It's just a little squirrel jump, right? Both feet transition, same time, okay? Same time, this kind of thing, right? So we're staying in place, but because this one's coming down to take the new Shoshin position at the rear position, my arm takes the space his arm is in. If I'm doing it against a high punch, it's this kind of thing where the arm comes up and catches and it glances it off, gives me a channel to move in on, right? Striking, it's the pendulum striking, but it's simultaneous, right? Everything's happening on one beat, right? One beat, right? Kuno Kata is our introduction into the Kyujutsu Tenkan, the disguising truth and falsehood, right? It's a huge core principle within ninjutsu, and it comes from one of the 8 gates. If you don't know anything about the 8 gates of traditional ninjutsu, these 8 areas of study that people had to be able to do, or a school had to be teaching as a minimum way back in ancient Japan to be able to claim to be teaching ninjutsu, right? We've got a program. There's a thing down in the base, or in the thing there, right? You don't need that. But one of those 8 gates is called the ninja no uge, okay? Deception and manipulation, okay? On a very simple way of looking at it is a magician's misdirection, right? You're always getting them to look at something as though that's the real attack or that's the real thing that they have, when something else is actually going on, right? So the kamae with this, right, is your Chino Kata, right? So it's the same thing. We're shifting off, catching this way, right? And you're maintaining things. But what we're going to be doing with this is borrowing from these different things. So we're actually going to go into this kind of high thing. It's the same pendulum swinging. See it? Same pendulum swinging, right? So the kamae is adaptive, right? By this point, we should be really, really good at finding that space right in front of them, okay? Again, Tai Sabaki, right? Here's a shoulder, here's his line, there's his balance line. No matter where I am when he attacks, I need to be right there, right on that center, okay? Footwork, again, is adaptive, but the footwork sets us up for a kick. Everything that we're doing, right, sets this thing up, right? And so because we're doing a kick, right, there's this stomp kick, sokuyaku kick, right? Sokuyaku ken, right? Heel stomp, that kind of thing, right? Dempo geri, whatever you want to call it, right? So we have this, right? But what we're doing is we could kick and step forward. We could kick and step back. We could kick and hold that position and then move from there. Everything gets really, really adaptive here, right? So the footwork is about weight transition. So it's very much like the Sui no Kata, but weight transition to set up for a kick, right? But it's not really. Okay? Even though the kata, and again, this moves us between second transmission and third transmission, our weight always has to be in a way, and our commands has to be in a way that no matter if the kick lands, doesn't land, we were planning on kicking, but we don't have a kick, so we have to strike, all that kind of stuff, right? We have to be able to move. Our footwork has to be such, and our balance and kamae has to be such that we can move in any of 10 directions in one move, right, with no wind-up. So if I need to move off, if I need to move back, if I need to move behind, if I need to move up, down, whatever, I don't have to wind up to go, right? Not a Superman movie, okay? So we have these things, right? All right, you got all that? Fantastic, right? This Friday, we're going to be focusing, and so I'm going to dial into just one of these, right? Just one of these. Look at 5 strategies, okay, on the footwork, okay? Just on the footwork. Where's my marker? Okay, so this is, okay. What we're going to be doing on Friday, at the Friday virtual class, is looking at physical examples and training with these things, okay? So when it comes to footwork, we have to understand that there's different conditions based on what we did ahead of time or what we're causing as we're entering, okay? Or based on his skill set, or based on legal issues, based on whatever, okay? So when it comes to footwork, right, if we look at it, chi, sui, ka, fu, ku, right? Chi, right, we have advancing footwork. Now, later on, you need to be able to do all kamae, or all the kata, with advancing footwork. Okay, you need to be able to do it with the Sui no Kata footwork. You need to be able to do it with the Ka no Kata footwork. You get the idea, right? Okay, so advancing. That means I'm stepping all the way through, right? It's a full step. Okay, call this chasing footwork. Okay, I've knocked him off balance. There's too much distance between us for us to just hold position. We need to chase him down, right? I've kicked him. He's falling backwards. As I put my foot down, I'm going to follow with a punch. Or I've punched, right? And he's, falling backwards, so I'm moving in. That's where your classic ski footwork is, okay? Mostly what the attacker does, right? So we have advancing full step footwork, right? We have place holding footwork, okay? So with Sui no Kata, right? Maybe he's close enough. It doesn't warrant a full step. And if I took a full step, I'd be in way too close and couldn't use my limbs. So I'm keeping him in a certain position, or maybe I'm in a tight space and I can't use that. Okay? So place holding, that's Sui and Ka. So we're doing it either back to front or we're doing it front to back. Okay? Either way. So we have advancing, we have place holding, and we have retreating. right? We have retreating, right? Retreating, I know it's not in there, is it? Right? Other than this, right? But that's not what we're talking about, right? We have to reverse engineer Chino Kata, right? Where we normally have this, okay? If I step back and he's still coming and I don't have the time to move in, then I better be able to do my technique while backing up. I better be able to do my technique while backing up. I better be able to do my technique while backing up. Okay? So retreating. One, I'm stealing space from him or I'm advancing. One, I'm creating space, right? I need to back out. In another one, I don't have a whole lot of space or I don't need a whole lot of space. So how do I generate power, right? So I'm moving in place, in this position, okay? Using this little vortex kind of thing, okay? We have place holding also fits in with the Chino Kata kind of thing, or the Funo Kata, right? So it's the same idea, right? And then the Kuno Kata, you have, right? You have this kick, right? But what you really have, a kick is in ninjutsu, in our art, in Bujinkan, a kick is an exaggerated step, especially when it comes to the stomp kick kind of ideas, right? It's an exaggerated walking step, okay? So if we're walking correctly from the knees down, right, our feet and our knees and our lower legs should look like we're riding a bike. I don't know that I can back out far enough. Let's see what happens. All kinds of accoutrements for different classes here, right? So when I'm moving, right, my legs almost look like I'm pedaling a bike. Okay? Keeps me from doing all this kind of stuff. Okay? So when I'm doing stomp kicks, and we have a drill for this, right? Kicking, 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 right? Okay? So so they still fit into this. The question is, what am I doing? My footwork now is going to be adaptive based on what the kick does, right? If I kick him and he falls back, then I want to kick and keep on moving. We call that a stepping kick, right? If I kick him because I want to fold him, right, I might just put the foot down and then readjust my foot. So I'm using place holding. Or I might go to kick and go, oh shit, and I need to get out of there, right? Or I might kick and I might miss and then need to move, okay? So one of the mistakes that people make is they tend to lean, pitch, or fall to deliver the kick because they can't see outside the delivery of the kick, okay? So what we really have are three types of footwork. Advancing, several different ways to do place holding, and then retreating, okay? And again, we're going to take a look at some models and whatnot on Friday, not necessarily Sanshin models, okay, in how this would work. There's going to be a couple of training drills and whatnot to make sure that balance is right, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to take a look at some kicking because kicking, again, is exaggerated stepping, right? So it's just another way to use the legs, and therefore it's footwork, okay? So that's it. Pretty simple, right? So as a next step, check the end cards, right? I'll have a link to a couple of the things that I referenced. Check in the description down below if you're looking for some other training. If you want to get on, I mean, if you're really looking for training and whatnot or some help, whether or not we ever work together, right? I'll put a link down in the description there where you can go over to our calendar, my calendar, right? Book a call, and then we'll talk about where you are, where you want to be, where the gap is, and I can give you a couple of 3-4 ideas for the next step to move on. Again, regardless of whether we ever work together. If you want to know about those things, of course, I'll share some things. But it's not that kind of call, okay? Now, if you just want to tell me and brag about things and whatever, don't make the call because I'll end that one very, very quickly, okay? So, but if you want help, then I'm more than willing to help you. Otherwise, there's this link, right? If you want to get in on the Friday coaching call, it's a 75 to 90-minute class. So a little over an hour to almost an hour and a half, depending on the day and who's here and how many corrections I have to make and all that, right? It's $4.99. We're working right now for people that want to that keep jumping onto these sessions. We're working on a continuity thing where somebody can pay a certain monthly fee and get in on all of these things. And that way, if they can't make it to class, they still get the recording. There's all kinds of stuff with this, and that's the same, right? If you go to that page, right? There's a timer on it, right? That timer runs out and the button disappears 90 minutes before class goes live at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. So if you're not signed up by that point, you won't have the opportunity to do it. Okay. If something happens, like I had a guy, Jeffrey, on the West Coast in the U.S., right? Every once in a while, work gets in the way, right? Well, he's already signed up for it. Whether he makes it live or not, he gets the recording, right? And then he can always send in some questions if he needs some clarification or whatever. Okay. But that's what I have for this one. Hopefully you'll take one of those next steps, and I will see you I'll talk to you on a call, I'll see you on the class, right? Or I'll talk to you next week on the next episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, right? Be safe, train hard. Talk to you soon.